Once you saved $1 million in your portfolio and you're over the age of 60, you really start seriously thinking about retirement. But just because those are nice round numbers doesn't guarantee you're quite ready to retire just yet. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through what your options are if you're 60 years old with $1 million in your portfolio and asking yourself, when can I retire? Hey everyone, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial, and I'm here to teach you how to get the most out of life with your money. So in today's video, we're actually going to pull the cover back and we're going to look at a real 60-year-old couple's financial plan with $1 million who came to us asking, can we retire? So we're going to show you exactly the guidance we gave them so you can maybe start to apply this to your situation. Now, the names have been redacted, of course, the actual numbers have been shifted slightly just to protect all confidential information, but this is a very real scenario that we see time and time again. So let's jump in and see what this looks like. Now this is John and Jane. They're both 60 years old, as you can see right here, and they came to us, still working, but asking themselves the question, can we retire? So what we did is we took them through an exercise where we looked at just that. If can you retire today? And if not, what are the simple options you have in front of you to make this a reality? Well, to start, let's take a look at where they were in terms of their assets. So you can see here, John has his 401k, about 500 grand. Jane has her 401k, about 311,000 plus a Roth IRA. They've got some cash, they had some investments in a joint account, and then they had their primary home. If you back out the home value, they have about $1 million in their portfolio. So this is where they stand in terms of their assets, and the next thing that we want to look at is what are their goals. Now, put simply, their goal was to retire now, or at least to see what would it look like to retire now. So we illustrated what would happen, John and Jane, if you retired at 60 and you wanted $8,000 per month to live on, as you can see right here. Now they talked about travel, but travel to them was an additional goal. They first wanted to see, can we even make this happen on just our core living expenses, and then we'll revisit travel. So these are their expenses, that's what we're planning for, of can they be done working and have $8,000 per month coming in. Well, to see what this looked like, today they have income. So John was earning about $120,000, Jane was earning about $95,000, but again, we're showing them retiring now. So those income sources are pretty much gone after this point. Now you can see John, his Social Security is about $3,000 per month at his full retirement age, so age 67, but we were showing John collecting at age 70. And then Jane, she had a full retirement age benefit of $2,000 per month, and we were showing her collecting at the age of 67. The next thing they both told us is in terms of savings, John had been contributing 10% to his 401k. They were also saving $500 per month to their joint account, but again, this was only while they're still working, so we're not necessarily showing this on an ongoing basis. So those are the details. 60 years old, $1 million in investments. They want to be able to live on $8,000 per month throughout retirement, and they need to do so through a combination of pulling money from their investments and savings and their Social Security benefits. So what we wanted to do was model out what would that look like if you retired today. Here's what that looked like for them. So as you can see here, this is a lot of numbers, but put quite simply, we wanted to compare what are their cash inflows. So what income sources do they have coming in from Social Security in this case, or salary? And then what are their cash outflows? So what are the expenses required to maintain the lifestyle that they want to live? Well, put simply, their cash inflows were nothing from here on out, at least until Social Security kicked in, because they're done working. So if we click into income, you can see they have a Social Security benefit, but it's not kicking in until 67 because that's when Jane starts her benefit, and then John's benefit didn't start until age 70. So yes, they have income, but they have nothing in income for the first several years because Social Security hasn't started yet and their salaries are going away. Now, just because income doesn't start for several years doesn't mean that expenses don't start for several years. Expenses start now, and they want to live on $8,000 per month in today's dollars, but what you can see is we adjusted that for inflation. So assume a 3% increase to that every single year, and then add taxes on top of that. So if you want to live on $8,000 per month, that's $8,000 per month after taxes have already been paid. So when we look at a tax payment here, this is a projection of how much would you have to pay in taxes on your withdrawal to end up with $8,000 per month adjusted for inflation. You see a much lower tax payment those first couple years, with the assumption being that they're living on their joint account, which is primarily tax-free because that's already tax money. And then taxes kick in here as they start pulling money from their IRA. The bottom line though, what we're trying to solve for is what role does your portfolio play in this situation? So we said, John and Jane, here's exactly how much would need to come from your portfolio every single year if you want to make this a reality. So year one, you need about $96,000 pulled from your portfolio to support your needs. Year 2, you see how that increases. Year 3, year 4, year 5, these are the numbers that your portfolio needs to be able to support. So the obvious next question is, hey, are these numbers good or bad? Is it good that I need 96,000 or 115,000? Well, it's relative. If you only have $96,000 in your portfolio, year 1, this is a really bad number. It means you got enough money to last 1 year into retirement, but then you're out of money. That's not a scenario that any of us want. Versus if you have $10 million in your portfolio, well, this number is a very small percentage of that. It's about 1% of a $10 million portfolio, so that's easy to do. But we're in between there. They have about $1 million, and so what we need to know is, what does this represent as a withdrawal rate? Because that helps us to understand, is this sustainable? So we want to compare that to what their total account value would be each year. So we did a projection of what's your projected account value each year. When we assume some growth on your investments, we assume withdrawals on your investments, and we see how your portfolio changes over time. So after comparing those numbers, what are the needs you have from your portfolio divided by your portfolio value? We solved for a withdrawal rate. And what we showed John and Jane, we said, look at this. In your first year, you're taking about 8.5% of your portfolio value, and that number is just increasing. And it's not just increasing because the amount you need is increasing, it's increasing because you're starting to eat into your principal. So it's a higher need based upon a lower portfolio value to support that. And so immediately we were able to look at these withdrawal rates and say this probably isn't, well, this almost certainly is not sustainable. In fact, when we look at what your portfolio is projected to look like, here you are today, you enjoy the first several years of retirement, kind of. There's not a whole lot of peace of mind when you see your portfolio balance is plummeting every single year, but you're probably going to be out of money sometime in your late 70s or early 80s. That's not a circumstance that we can afford. That's not something that we're trying to plan for. Here's the thing, you look at that graph we just saw, and it seems pretty hopeless. It seems like retirement is years away, or some major fundamental changes have to happen with regards to Joe and Jane's expectations. That's not the case though. As I want to show you, and the point that I want to convey in this video, is oftentimes seemingly little changes have profound impact on the sustainability of your plan over the course of your retirement. So let's take a look at this. Let's go back to the screen. What we're looking at here is what would happen under the exact assumptions that we laid out. Retire today, live on $8,000 per month, have that adjusted for inflation, Social Security at 67 and 70. But let's see how that would change if we adjusted some of these assumptions. Well, for one, John and Jane, they came back and they said, James, you know what? We actually really enjoy what we're doing. It's just the demands of what we're doing, it's getting to be a little stressful. And we could totally see ourselves doing this for another couple years, but maybe then we'd retire after that. We said, okay, what if we didn't retire at 60? What if we pushed that to age 62? And they said, hey, James, on top of that, we don't want to just fully retire. Again, we really enjoy what we're doing. We just don't want what we're doing to totally consume our lives, get in the way of our ability to travel or spend time with kids or grandkids. So what we want to do is, James, we still do want to work to some extent, but whether that's consulting for our current companies or whether that's part-time work, we do want to do something. And James, we want to do something maybe until the age of 70, but we don't want to earn a whole lot of money. So we talked through that and we said, okay, that might be $20,000 per year. Not that they didn't want to earn a lot of money, but they didn't want to do something that the requirements of earning a higher salary would demand. So we said, what if the two of you earned $20,000 per year each for a total of $40,000? You know, before even doing that, let's take a look at what would this look like just working 2 additional years. So here's the projection of them working or retiring now. If we look at this, what about working 2 extra years? That makes a profound difference. Those 2 extra years of work gave them over 10 extra years of funding, and what you can see here, a significant amount more in their portfolio by the time they reached age 90, which is how long we're doing the projection for. They said, James, this is wonderful, but let's now see what that looks like if we work just part-time from 62 to 70. So what we looked at then, we said, let's bump part-time work to $40,000 per year combined, and let's now look at the impact of that. What you see here, now there's a night and day difference from their initial plan of thinking they wanted to retire now versus the reality of saying, you know what, we're not actually ready to retire now, but we do want to have a plan in place so we can start to think about landing this plane. So working 2 more years in the current capacity and then going significantly or taking a significant drop in income, well, their plan now looks dramatically different. Then I suggested something else to them. I said, you know what we're planning for, this $8,000 per month, if you look at a lot of studies, that's not what most retirees actually do. It's not as if they spend $8,000 per month and that just increases with inflation all the way until the end of their life. There's something called the retirement spending smile, where you spend more up front and that starts to dip as you get a little bit older and travel less and you're less active. It starts to increase maybe on the back end as medical expenses kick in. But the retirement spending smile says that if inflation's increasing by, say, 3%, for example, the average retiree over the course of their retirement, their expenses only increase by about 2% per year. So it's not a dramatic drop-off in spending, but it's a slow, gradual drop-off over the course of their retirement. So if I look at this and say, this is based upon adjusting your expenses for inflation, but what if we look at this and apply something that's maybe a little bit more realistic, of saying maybe your expenses won't keep up with inflation exactly? Well, if we refresh that, now what you can start to see is really significant differences. Again, this is a night and day difference between where they were just 5 short minutes ago and where they'd likely be based upon a more accurate representation of their retirement. Now here's the fun part. We said this is quite a bit of extra money that you didn't originally have in your plan even just 5 minutes ago. I want to circle back with you, John and Jane. We talked about travel and an extra budget for travel those first several years of retirement because I know that you love to travel and adventure, but we started with a 0 there. We said let's make sure we can meet our basics first before we even back in or before we even add in additional travel. Well, I think there's some room to add in some travel here. So what if you want to travel a lot more your first 10 years of retirement? Let's put a number in here to say, what would it take to fund your dream trips? You're going to Europe, you're taking the cruises, you're doing whatever you want to do. Well, they thought about it. They talked with one another and say, James, if we had $30,000 per year after taxes solely dedicated to extra travel, we could probably do everything we wanted to do and then some. So we said, great, let's test it. Let's now plug in that $30,000 per year, look at your plan again, and as you'll see, it does make a difference to what's possible, but you're still fully on track to meet all of your needs. So that was the fun part of the plan. You go from the sense of, hey, we're nowhere close to making it, we have a very low probability of success, to you're on track and then some. And in fact, let's talk about more ways that you can spend and more ways that you can implement what you want to implement. Now, just doing this is not quite enough. We want to test what's called the confidence or even the probability of these plans. So the probability of success says, look, we're planning on a single growth rate from now until the end of your life. The reality is the market's not going to give you a consistent growth rate every single year. You're going to get a wide range of potential returns, and depending upon what the market does in those first few years of retirement, that could make or break your plan, even if you have the same average return or the exact average return that you're planning on. So probability of return says, let's stress test this. Let's run 10,000 or 1,000 different scenarios in different market conditions to say what percentage of the time is your plan successful. Well, that initial plan, where they didn't travel at all, but they were fully done today, extremely low probability of success. Probably not going to happen. I would not recommend this. But the updated plan, where we said, hey, let's give you an extra travel budget, but you're going to work a couple more years and then you're going to work part-time. Now a much higher probability of success. Now, people sometimes say, I don't want you to retire if this probability of success is under 85%. Kind of an elementary way of looking at a Monte Carlo analysis, in my opinion. What this is really saying is 26% of the time, there's a 26% chance we're probably going to make some changes to this plan over the course of your retirement. Meaning maybe if the market's not doing so hot and inflation spiraling out of control, do we push the $30,000 of travel out a little bit? Or do we work a little bit longer or spend a little bit less or make some little shift, and those little shifts can have a huge impact. Now, by the way, I want to ask you, is this helpful to see an actual case study? I know so many of these videos is just me talking and maybe there's some numbers on the side that are walking you through it a little bit, but this is actually encapsulating what this looks like comprehensively. If this is helpful, let me know in the comments. Say, yes, James, please do more of this. James, hey, show something that's related to taxes or spending or whatever it might be. Or say, hey, James, no, this isn't helpful at all. Please get this off the screen and go back to the usual way of doing it. But let me know either way. The point I wanted to get across with this is not that your plan is going to look exactly like John and Jane's plan. The point I wanted to make is sometimes retirement seems so daunting. And you look at the numbers and, hey, we're nowhere close, but seemingly small changes, with regards to how long you work, or doing part-time work, or little cuts to income or expenses or whatever it might be, they have profound impact. It's important that you do the planning though. So as you're looking at retirement planning, there's not a one size fits all, there's not a formula. It's about understanding where do things currently stand, and then what are the little levers that you can pull to make this plan a reality, or to improve the odds of success of this plan, or to add in things like travel that maybe you hadn't even fully accounted for before. So I hope this was helpful. And if you're looking at this and saying, oh man, with a few little changes, we might actually be in a position to retire, whereas before we didn't think we would be. Well, if that's you, then make sure you check out this next video I made where I talk about 5 reasons it might be time for you to retire now. Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.